You're listening to the Fowl Front Waterfowl podcast on the Waypoint Podcast Network. And this week, we're talking all about choke tubes. We're going to be talking to Scott Carlson from Carlson's Choke Tubes. We're going to walk you through patterning your shotgun and selecting the right choke tube, and kind of what goes into the production and processes of producing a choke tube. This episode is also brought to you by On Hickory Creek, down in central and southeast Kansas, Dive Bomb Industries, and Toe Tags LLC. Welcome to the Fowl Front Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, where our goal is to recruit and educate new hunters while entertaining the rest of you. Without new hunters and the mentorship of those more seasoned, this passion as we know it faces an uncertain future. So get the word out, turn the volume up, and enjoy the show, because you're on the Fowl Front. Now, I wanted to explain to you guys a little bit what's going on, what's the new thing, what's this Waypoint Podcast Network. So, banding up together with some other content creators and podcasters from the Waypoint Podcast Network, and we're going to be coming together to spread the word about conservation, keeping this way of life going. If you're not familiar with Waypoint, they've got quite a few television shows, streaming television shows that they put on. A lot of fishing, a lot of hunting, and there's some really good gun dog stuff in there too. Really excited to be working with bigger names in the industry, and we're going to be having them on quite a bit and doing a lot of collaboration, and there's some other really great podcasts that are going to be coming up. So remember, you can still find Fowl Front right where you find it right now, but you can also find it on the Waypoint Podcast Network. All right, folks, without any further ado, let's get into this week's episode. All right, today we've got a special guest on today. We have Scott Carlson, the owner and founder of Carlson's Choke Tubes. How you doing today, Scott?
Doing great, Ben. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. So let's see here. Carlson's Choke Tubes, pretty big company in the choke tube industry, at least upon Googling, and I think most any serious waterfowler probably owns one of your choke tubes.
Well, we hope so. We've been doing this since 1987 when we started the company, and mainly it was for waterfowlers and turkey hunters trying to develop tubes that would throw better pattern than conventional chokes like flush mount chokes that come with your guns. So that's kind of what gave me the idea, and I've got a gunsmithing background which drove it, so I put the two together and somehow landed upon chokes and trying to get shotguns to shoot better.
Yeah, well, I suppose before we get into Carlson's choke tube story, we should probably hear the story of Scott Carlson first. How did you come to be a hunter?
Well, I grew up in a family of hunting in rural Nebraska. So when I was a younger kid, we squirrel hunted. That's what I learned hunting, was squirrels with a .22 rifle, and then as I grew older and was able to get around and drive, we were right on the Missouri River, so terrific waterfowl opportunities there. And that was back in the 70s, so that was before the advent of the choke tubes as we know them now. So everything was fixed choke guns, and back then I didn't think much about it, and back then we didn't have to shoot steel shots. So we just did a lot of hunting and that type of stuff. And then after I got out of high school, I went to a 3-year college for gunsmithing. My dad had a gun shop, and he was a vet, large animal vet there in Nebraska. So anyway, I had an interest in the gun side of it, so went to college and got out of there and did some gigs around the Midwest, managing different retail stores and managing gunsmiths, and kind of got more of a love for shotguns than I did for rifles, although I still have a passion for rifles too. But that kind of just led into the choke side of it when I got to where I am now in northwest Kansas and Atwood, Kansas, and then started experimenting with using these longer choke tubes and getting better patterns out of shotguns. So that's kind of the short side of the story, I guess.
Awesome. Do you remember your first waterfowl hunt?
Actually, I do. It was with my dad, and back when we waterfowl hunted in the 70s, it was totally different than it is now. We didn't, on the Missouri River, we just, we didn't put blinds up. We just got in cattails and pretty much along the river at some point where there was a good spot. But, it's so high-tech now. But, I've got a lot of great memories up on the Missouri with hunting with my dad, and he's the one that got me started. He wasn't a big waterfowler, but he liked to hunt. And so depending upon the day, what was going on or what time of year it was, sometimes we duck hunted, sometimes we deer hunted. But, up in that part of the world, up by Yankton, South Dakota is actually where I grew up. There's so much waterfowl opportunity up there with that Missouri River. It's just unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. Where the Niobrara and Missouri meet kind of area?
Yep, just about 20 miles from Niobrara, Nebraska. That's right where the Niobrara pours into the Missouri River. Yeah,
there's not enough words or postcards that can be sent out about that place. That's a beautiful part of the country.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of waterfowl travels through there. Although the flyways moved a little bit since I was in high school, and there's not near the waterfowl there now. Although it's still very good, it's not near what it used to be years ago. But still a neat area. Anytime you can get around a river of that size or 2 or 3 rivers coming in at one area, I mean, you're going to have a lot of hunting opportunity across the board. So
yeah. Do you remember the first waterfowl that you put down?
Yeah, it was a redhead, actually, and I think you could only shoot one of those back then. But that's the first duck I ever remember shooting. That
awesome.
We shot a lot of mallards up back then up there. That's what we mainly came through, were mainly mallards. You get some redheads. They're not too many pintails or ducks like that, but if I'd have been more into waterfowl hunting and knew more about it, there would have probably been a lot more opportunity with setting up blinds and doing that, because, a lot of guys did that. They were a lot older than I was, but, back then there just wasn't the equipment and the knowledge. Actually, now there's knowledge at your fingertips, but back then it was all kind of trial and error. So,
what kind of gun were you using back then?
My first shotgun was a 16 gauge 870 pump shotgun, full choke.
Standard, right?
Yep, Wingmaster, actually.
Awesome. Do you remember kind of the equipment that you and your dad used up there? Yeah,
it's like I said earlier. It wasn't so high tech back then. We didn't have all these crazy camouflage patterns, and we bought a lot of stuff from a company called Herders.
Yeah.
It was just pretty much old school camo stuff that everybody back in the day thought, was just the stuff you needed to have. Where you look at it now and you go, what were we thinking? But we didn't know any better. But there wasn't the internet and all that stuff where you could look things up and find different clothing and stuff. Most of it was done out of magazines or what you saw. So Herders was a big company back then, really up and going before Cabela's and Bass Pro really took off anyway in that part of the country.
Right. Do you remember what kind of decoys and how many of them you guys used?
I really don't. Flambeau sticks out in my mind that's what we were using, and we didn't use a lot of decoys back then. It really didn't take a lot of decoys. I mean, and sometimes we didn't even use decoys. I mean,
really,
you had so many. Oh yeah, you had so many ducks, and certain times of the year you had so many ducks moving up and down that river all the time, moving on and off of it. If you were in the reeds along the bank and you just had a call, you could do fairly well. So,
man, that would be nice.
Yeah, no, and it was. And, I've hunted since there. I've got a good friend that lives up there at Springfield, South Dakota, and he's got a boat now that we got all decked out and go up there and hunt. And, there's a lot more pressure. There's a lot more hunters. And the main thing I notice is there's not near the waterfowl in that area, and that's why I say I think that flyway has moved, possibly maybe a little more west than what it used to be, and the flood 4 or 5 years ago on the Missouri River made a big difference. Took all the sandbars and everything out, and took all the reeds, took all the cattails, took all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that river's changed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years.
So you graduated out of high school up there, and then you said you went to gunsmithing school.
Yeah, I went to gunsmithing school in Trinidad, Colorado. Back then there was 3 or 4 in the country. It's kind of the one that I identified that might suit me best. So I spent 3 years in southern Colorado.
What inspired you to get into gunsmithing?
I just always had a love for guns, I guess. My dad had a gun shop, and I was always in there cleaning the shop up or helping customers. And I'd work on something I wanted to work on when I had the opportunity, and just had an interest in working on guns. Really didn't know what else I'd do or wanted to do, so I figured that was a good place to start, so that's what I did.
Awesome. So, coming out of Trinidad, Colorado, you said you kind of moved your way across the Midwest there, working at some retail stores?
Yeah, I worked at a fin and feather store in Omaha, Nebraska. I had my first job actually here in Atwood, Kansas as a gunsmith in a small gun shop that was here. And then the last job I had before I moved back here, there was a company, Wichita Arms Incorporated. We manufactured silhouette rifles and pistols. And that's the last thing I did before I moved back to Atwood again, and then started this up. So
yeah. So tell me about, how did you go from working for someone else to telling yourself, okay, I'm going to start Carlson's choke tubes? What did that process look like?
Well, that process didn't really happen. It probably happened more by accident, because I had a small gun shop in Atwood, Kansas for a little over 20 years. And at the same time, I was messing with chokes and started Carlson's choke tubes, and got real lucky when I started. We were just trying to develop chokes that extended, get better patterns out of them. And then I was able to hook up with a retailer that had almost 30 stores, and we figured out a way to package and merchandise our product, which was big, because back in the early 80s when we were doing this, everybody sold choke tubes in pill bottles. I mean, when you went into a gun shop, you asked them if they had chokes, and they probably had them under the counter or in the back room, but they were definitely not out where people could get their hands on them, because then they disappear. So we came up with a way to rack them and packaging that hung on a display that you could put out in front of customers, so you could actually get some sales on choke tubes. So and then we started experimenting with extended chokes, for better patterns for waterfowl hunters mainly.
Do you remember your first original choke that you made?
Most of those were all flush mount chokes, just for, like your standard Remington 870, your Mossberg 500s. We identified right away that factory chokes weren't so hot, and even the flush mount chokes that we were making were outperforming the factory chokes. And then kind of got into extended chokes. Back then there wasn't very many companies doing choke tubes, only 2 or 3 of us back then, so maybe 4.
Interesting. And so when you go to, what's the process look like from pen to paper, or from your brain to selling a choke tube? What's that kind of look like?
Well, are you talking on the manufacturing aspect, or just coming up with a tube?
Yeah, I would say coming up with a tube.
Yeah, well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to come up, like when we worked with Federal, for instance, on their Black Cloud ammunition, and we wanted a choke that would shoot, the ammo good. So what we do is we manufacture chokes anywhere from cylinder up to an extra full, and maybe a little bit tighter for smaller steel pellets. And then we go out with that gamut of chokes, probably 8 or 9 chokes, and we shoot 5. I mean, it's kind of boring, really. You're shooting paper, The way we do it's electronically generated, so it's a lot easier than the way we used to do it. But you got to go out and shoot every one of those chokes with 5 rounds of ammunition and get an average of every one of those chokes of what they're doing with, for instance, Black Cloud 2s, Black Cloud double Bs, Black Cloud 4s. And then you look at those 8 or 9 or 10 different chokes that you're shooting with that ammo, and you pick out maybe the 3 or 4 higher percentages at 40 yards, and then we go out and shoot those again. So if anybody's gone out and patterned a shotgun and put paper up on a board and shot it, you know how much time that takes, the time you spend. Well, imagine doing that, 5 rounds out of each choke, and then coming up, counting all those pellets, and then coming up, with the top 4, and then going and doing it again so that you can come up with a constriction that will pattern the ammo, the best it can be patterned. So, that's what we like to tell our customers. We try to go out and do the homework so they don't have to, but they still need to pattern their shotguns.
Right. And, from some of your guys', so you've been working with Black Cloud a little bit, does each different ammunition kind of have its own characteristics, or, what's the best way for somebody like myself to, okay, I want this choke tube, or I want, how do I go about that situation?
Well, and that's a great question. So, patterning, if we had 20 people in this room that I was talking to, and I asked them to raise, and they were waterfowl hunters, and I asked them, raise your hand, how many of you patterned your shotgun? I bet out of the 20 people, not 10 of them would raise their hands that they've ever patterned a shotgun. So I try to tell people, it's kind of like going deer hunting. You put a scope on a rifle, and you don't go deer hunting. You go sight your rifle in. Well, you ought to do the same thing with the shotgun, because there's a lot of things you need to find out about that gun before you go hunt. I mean, number one, you need to find out, where does the gun shoot? In other words, at 40 yards off of a bench, in relationship to the dot you're shooting at 40 yards, where does the center mass of the pattern hit on that paper? And I used to think every one of them would hit dead center. Well, that is not true. We pattern a lot of shotguns. I've got a lot of shotguns in here in the shop, and I would say 80% of the guns that we shoot do not shoot point of aim. So that's one thing you're going to find out patterning. And, you've been with guys that say, well, I'm just not that good a shot. When they go hunting, maybe you outshot him. He said, I've never been that good a shot. Well, he's maybe never been that good a shot because he's never patterned his gun, and if he did, he might find out that the gun doesn't shoot where he thinks he does, and that may seem hard to believe, but people out there listening will go do it. Some of the people listening are going to find out their gun's not shooting where they think it does. So, that's a very important aspect of hunting, and and then finding out where that gun shoots. Then I tell people, get 2 or 3 different types of ammunition that you think you want to use, and maybe a couple of chokes, and take it all out and shoot it, together on the patterning board. Yeah, it's boring, but once you have it figured out where the gun shoots, it'll shoot the same place with all different types of ammunition. And once you figure out the choke and the load combination, you're way ahead of the game when you get to the field, and you've got your ammo from then on, and you've got the choke, and you can hunt, and you know exactly what your gun's doing.
So I guess for some of the, newer hunters out there, or, most of the hunters out there, as you said, most people don't pattern their shotgun. You spend a lot of time patterning. What's some of the tips that you would say, okay, hey, these are the things that you need to go out there to do it, and what are some things that can help a new hunter pattern their shotgun?
Yeah, good question. And the main thing is patterning the shotgun. And guys, there's a lot of these targets out there that are like 12 inches wide and 18 inches tall. Those targets are great, but there's guns out there that shoot 8 inches high at 40 yards. So when you're shooting one of those smaller targets, a lot of your pellets go off the target and you can't see them, or you can't find the center mass of where that gun's shooting. So I tell guys, take the tightest choke you have. If you're patterning double Bs and the choke will allow you, like a full choke, will allow you to shoot steel shot through it, ours will. Shoot that at 40 yard with your double Bs and use at least a 30 or 40 inch piece of paper with a dot in the center of it so that when you shoot, you can capture all those pellets. So, for instance, if your gun's shooting high 8 inches and left 4 inches, you're going to capture those pellets even on the top corner of that paper with that size target, and you're going to be able to figure out where the center mass of your pattern is and how far off your gun shoots, if it does. And then if you've got a high shooting gun, is not a bad thing, because a high shooting gun, and that's the way a lot of shotguns are set up, you can see your target on top of the sight and then you're dead on. Whereas if you cover the target, you shoot high just like you do on the patterning board when you cover the dot. So, and I tell guys, hey, take a couple different brands of ammo out there and a couple different chokes and shoot the loads and the chokes together and see what the densest pattern is on the paper. I mean, that's what you're looking for. So the more pellets and the denser the pattern, less likely for something to fly through it.
I think the first time that I went out and patterned my shotgun, it was for turkey season, obviously, and all I did was bring up just a big TV box that I had, and then every time I would recover it up with duct tape or masking tape, I should say. But so you're saying like a large target at 40 yards,
yeah.
And then
turkey chokes are really good, because I'll bet when you shot your turkey choke, I'll bet it didn't shoot point of aim. Now maybe it did, but you might have saw it shot a little high left or low. But turkey chokes shoot so tight that they show you center mass, and center mass is where your gun is shooting.
Yeah, I shoot a Browning BPS that my grandpa got for me when I was like 12.
Yeah, great gun.
Yeah, and that thing it's pretty close. I think it shoots just a little bit high, but there's no left or right on it, so that's really nice.
Yeah, the left and right's not good on a shotgun. So, but that's why you go out and pattern them. You gotta find that out. Is there something wrong with the gun, or does the gun shoot the way I want it to, or the way I think it should shoot? Because if you know the answer to that question after you pattern when you're out there hunting and you miss a duck or a goose and you know it was within range, you should have killed it, you know what the problem was. It was you. If you're out there and you're missing ducks and geese, you don't know why. I mean, you're probably not going to blame yourself. You're probably going to blame either the load or the choke, because you don't know the answer to the question. It's just like I went back when I started this, you sight your deer rifle and it's an inch high at 100 yards. If you miss something at 100 yards, you miss. So
right.
If you got all the variables covered, it's a lot easier to answer the question that you're the one making the mistake and not a variable that you don't know.
Sure. Are there any weather considerations when it comes to wind when you're out there patterning or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much wind, but sure. Yeah,
sure.
Wind can make a difference.
I've always wondered what amount of wind really matters to shot.
Yeah, and that's maybe a question I can't answer because, we've never done any experimentation on that, but, myself, I think a 15 to 25 mile an hour wind can make considerable difference in your shot pattern as far as how it shoots on a calm day and how it shoots on a windy day, because it's going to get pushed as it gets out there at given distance, and how far that wind pushes it, I can't answer, and that's something hard to depict on a patterning board too, because you can't keep constant wind going the correct direction always where you're patterning at, but it's definitely a consideration, and I'm sure there's some stuff out there if a guy looked on on wind and affecting patterns. But, the main thing we do here, we develop chokes and we pattern test them with different ammunition, different constrictions, and that's the primary thing we do here, and how we come up with, the different type of steel shot chokes we have. And turkey chokes, geez, there's a gamut of new turkey ammunition out there that's really, really good stuff in the last 5 years or so that was never in the market before. And it's, patterned super tight and, just great loads.
Yeah. And when I first, started getting into hunting and stuff, and I started, everybody can kind of conceptualize the, what choke tubes do. Bigger or tighter patterns. But I was explained to it that it's like having 100 people in a gymnasium, and it's, you have one door open. It's going to take a really long time for everybody to get out. But it's, it's going to be single filed. If you have all 4 doors open, everybody can get out. Anything like that. I was hoping maybe you could just kind of break it down elementary style. How choke tubes constrict and control the release of shot out of the end of a shotgun.
Well, they control it by constriction. So the more open choke you have, such as a cylinder, is going to let a lot of shot out quickly because it's not constricted. But by the same token, it's not going to shoot it at distance. So a cylinder choke may be a good 20 to 25 yard choke if you're hunting game, quail, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then you've got skeet after that, which constricts it a little bit more. A skeet choke will get you out maybe to 30 yards. And then the chokes that everybody knows about is a IC, a mod, and a full. And, again, the full choke being more tightly constricted than the improved cylinder choke. An improved cylinder choke is a good 35-yard choke. A modified's a good maybe 45-yard choke, and then a full choke can get you out there to 60 yards. So mainly the way to change the pattern as far as the density and the amount of pellets is the amount of constriction you put into it. And that's why those turkey chokes, like a full choke, is around 700 thousandths constriction, whereas a modified is 710. So it's only 10 thousandths difference in constriction, but it makes a big difference at 40 yards. Well, a turkey choke is 30 or 40 thousandths tighter than a full choke. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much tighter some of these turkey chokes are over, what people are used to in their guns like IC, mod, and full.
And now for, us duck hunters out here, when it comes to steel, I know that there are, full chokes for steel and whatnot, but I was always told that I was never supposed to run my regular full chokes with any steel in my shotgun.
Yep, and you read your owner's manual.
Right.
So most factory choke tubes, that's correct. You can't shoot steel shot past a modified constriction. With most aftermarket chokes, and not all of them, but most of them, ours for sure, in our full choke you can shoot steel shot. There's some limitations, like on our full we say you can shoot up to double B, and you can't shoot it faster than 1550. You can shoot twos and shoot them 1,700 feet per second through a full choke, but not the double Bs. You can only shoot them up to 1,550. So with factory tubes, and that's why I say almost any aftermarket tube that you buy is better than a factory choke, because many people may not believe this, but it's true. None of the factories make their own choke tubes. So they source the chokes out. They try to get them done as cheaply as possible to keep the retail price of their shotguns down. And so that's why most aftermarket tubes are made out of better stainless steel. You can shoot tighter constrictions with steel, and you get better patterns with steel, lead, or other type shot.
Now, one question that I had, we're talking about constriction. That's that's pretty simple to understand. The tighter the the choke tube. But what's the, you see some of these choke tubes, you look at some of them, they stick out an inch. They look at some of them, they stick out a quarter of an inch. What's the length of the constriction have to do within the choke tube?
Well, and that's another good question. So, to get the optimum pattern out of a choke, from what we have found in our testing and research, is you need a little over an inch of parallel or constricted area. So, for instance, like when you're shooting a Mossberg 500 choke, that choke is about an inch and a half long. And the choke tapers from where the wad enters. It tapers until it hits what we call the parallel section or choke section, and then it's directed out the barrel. Well, in a Mossberg 500, that parallel section is about a half inch of choke section. On a Remington 870, a rim choke in a flush mount version has about 3/4 of an inch of parallel or choke section. So when you extend a choke tube 3/4 of an inch, and you add it to either the half inch that the flush mount choke has or the 3/4 of an inch that the flush mount choke has a parallel section, now you're up over that inch 100,000ths that you need for the best pattern. And after that point, you can make them 4 inches long, and they won't pattern any better. So most of the time, if you can get 3/4 of an inch of parallel section, then you're going to be able to get the best possible pattern you can out of the choke tube.
Okay, interesting. So, talking about the selection of what you need, I think a lot of people definitely, especially duck hunters and goose hunters, they look at it and they say, okay, I'm going to be shooting number 2s or BB, and I want to be able to stone cold kill these things at 40 to 50 yards. I think is like a lot of people push out that way, because everybody kind of wants to have extended range, as it were. What buyer's advice would you have to somebody that's looking for the right choke?
Well, that's a great question, and I really think that most waterfowl hunters over-choke their shotguns. They shoot long-range or extended chokes when most of their shots are maybe at 30 to 40 yards. So if they actually had a more open choke, like a mid-range choke for those type of shots or those type of days. So I tell guys, there's a lot of 2-packs out there you can buy that are good value because you save a little bit of money because you're buying 2 of them together. And I tell most people either to go to the field with a mid-range and a long-range choke, or if you're hunting timber and over water occasionally, use a close range and a mid-range choke and have those in your bag so that, waterfowl changes when you're out there hunting. I mean, you can go out to a pit or out to a blind that you use, and one day a mid-range is a great tube, it's out to 45 yards and works great. The next day you go out there, it's a nice day, and nothing's coming in closer than 35 or 40 yards where your first shot is, and that mid-range kind of runs out of gas. So then you do need a long range. But I would say in most instances, most waterfowlers want to hunt, where they can get a third shot off by 45 yards. And in most cases, a mid-range tube, you're much better served shooting that because it is more open and still will have a dense enough pattern at 40 or 45 yards. And then that's kind of the range you want to hunt, or get waterfowl in.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say is, you're talking about short range, mid range, and long range. What kind of distances are you using to describe these, short, mid, and long?
Yeah, or close range. So a close range tube is something like an IC. So, out to 30 or 35 yards, or maybe even a skeet style tube. We do a close range and a skeet in our cremator series, for hunting and timber and stuff. But in those situations, you want an open pattern so that when a mallard comes down through those trees, you don't want to be shooting, a really tight pattern at him and have the opportunity to hit a tree as it's headed to him if they're coming into timber, or it's so tight that your aim was poor and you miss. So when you're shooting a close range tube in those instances, it throws a wider pattern and you're going to hit your target. And then if you're hunting, out of a pit, or you're hunting, where your shots are out to 45 yards, that mid-range tube works really good. It works in at 20 yards too, and still gives you a wide enough pattern that you're going to be able to hit something with it. And then and you can do the same thing with a full choke. If you're a long-range tube, if you're a excellent shot, but most of us aren't. Most of us aren't out shooting shotguns all the time. We do it in the fall time, and then we lay off most of the summer. But so those tighter chokes are for longer ranges, and out to 60 yards, and to know exactly what they do with the loads that you're using that's why it's so important to get out and pattern your shotguns. But I think for most guys that hunt waterfowl, a mid-range tube is far better than a long-range tube, unless you're a pass shooter.
Right. I have one buddy, and he'll know who he is when we hear this. He's always that third shot miraculous, like can't believe you hit the on your third shot, but can't hit the 15-yarders for nothing. So thinking he's probably got a long range in. Yeah,
and he could be over choked, and another thing that may help him is put the gun on paper. That answers your question. If you shoot that long range tube, if you think most of your shots are within 35 yards, put up a patterning paper at 30 yards and shoot an extended range tube at it and a mid range tube at it with the loads you want to use, or a couple different loads you want to see which one you want to use, and see what your pattern looks like, because that right there answers your question. The proof's in the pattern, and that's why you pattern shotguns.
Yeah. Now, over there at Carlson, do you guys work with all sorts of ammunition, or do you guys just select a couple?
No, we try to work with across the board with all ammunition manufacturers, and the reason we do that is because of our customers. I mean, when you look at our choke selections, we manufacture over 2,400 different SKUs of chokes, which cover just about every type of ammo anybody can go out and buy. So when a customer calls in, and he's shooting a certain type of ammunition, it does him a disservice if we're only shooting 4 or 5 different kinds of ammunition. So, we try to shoot a gamut of ammo, maybe even stuff people haven't heard of that's available out there, just so we can answer customer questions or get a hold of the ammo ahead of time and get it patterned with the chokes, so that we know when they do call us on the ammo, we know what to direct them at as far as a constriction or a choke type.
Right. And, I think a lot of budget hunters are really susceptible to the week-by-week, whatever's cheapest at Walmart or Dick's or whatever their, local store is. Do you have ever any issues with people, they shoot a bunch of different ammo throughout the entire year? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, and there's, everybody's got a budget, but again, if you're buying low-end ammo or high-end ammo, go pattern it. If it's low-end ammo and it don't pattern good, there's a reason it's low-end ammo. So I guess the answer to that question is if you see it doesn't pattern good, is that what you're looking for in the field? More cripples, more misses. I think most of us want, when we go hunting, we want to have a good experience, and if we shoot at something, we want to hopefully have the opportunity to harvest it. So again, you got to go out and pattern that stuff, and sometimes the low-end ammo, shoots good through chokes, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, there's a reason they're generally lower-end loads. They're either reduced powder charges, reduced ounces a shot, or different wads.
Right.
And all of those can affect your pattern. But if you put them on paper, that'll tell you the story. I mean, just like with your rifle, for instance, if you had your rifle sighted in at 243 and you got it sighted in with 80 grain bullets at 100 yards, and you go to the store and you buy 100 grain bullets, are you going to go re-sight it in, or just go shoot it and figure it's going to shoot a little different?
Right.
If you want to get a deer, you better go make sure it's shooting where you think it does. And there is some ammo out there too. It's like I said, we all have budgets, but what do you have to spend on ammo? Ammo is one of the smaller cost of your hunt if you look at everything else.
Yeah.
And there are ammos out there that are better because of either weight of the pellet or shape of the pellet that give you more knockdown. So with those types of ammunitions, you can shoot smaller pellets, get the same knockdown of, say a 2, you can shoot a 2 and get the knockdown of a double B and kick your payload up 30 or 40%. Well, what's that equate to? Well, kicking a payload up 30 or 40%, if it's patterning good, it's, more pellets on target. I mean, you're going to hit more of what you're shooting at.
Right. Is there any, specific combinations, I guess, that you would not recommend, but are there like any issues with wads? Because you always hear about these different types of those wads get hung up a lot in those extended chokes and things of that nature. I know that I've heard a little bit of that from the duck blind. What would you call him? The guy that's out there that thinks he's the professional and knows about all this stuff, saying, "Oh, you can't shoot those; the wads get hung up." Things like that.
Yeah, and that goes back to Pattern Master and Black Cloud and the flight control wad. So with our porting and our chokes, it does not affect the wad. So it doesn't matter what type of Black Cloud ammo you had. If you had the old Black Cloud ammo with the flex control wad, or you have the new Black Cloud ammo with the flex wad, with our ported chokes, you can shoot those type of loads through there. With the old Black Cloud and the Pattern Master with the flight control wad, Pattern Master tries to put a wad stopper, or does put a wad stopper inside the choke. That's what they call it. And so what was happening is the fingers off of those flight control wads were hitting those wad stoppers, and sometimes those would stop the wad, and when you fired the next round, then you swell your choke or your barrel. So that is true with that brand of chokes. You don't, anything with something wad stopping inside of it, I would say not to use a flight control wad in.
Okay. Yeah, I always wondered about that with, all this different, if there's just some stuff out there that just is not compatible with each other.
Yeah, and there's not too many other wads that I'm familiar with anyway that would allow you not to shoot them through a ported choke tube. I mean, there's the flight control wad was the first one, and they didn't even claim that to start with, but I think they saw with that choke Pattern Master with the wad stoppers in there, and then Federal identified that they were hanging up on the wads and they were holding them in the choke sometimes, and so they just told people don't shoot them through any ported choke. Well, if you don't have anything inside the choke to catch the fingers off the wad, it's going to travel through the choke and not be caught. So,
gotcha. So, okay, we talked back a little bit about you starting the company, but where's the company at now, and how to get there?
Well, the company has expanded a lot, because when we started this, there was a couple of us, and now there's well over 20 of us, and there's a lot of different SKUs. Like I said, in the last just 5 years alone, there's been so many new ammos come out with the hypersonic loads, with all the new turkey loads, the new tungsten loads, and so anyway, when all those loads are coming out, now you got a bismuth load out too. We're scrambling to do chokes to shoot the ammunition to figure out, what chokes pattern these loads the best, or what do we have to do inside the tube to make them pattern better. So we're always, patterning ammo, looking at new ammunition that's coming out, because, they go hand in hand. The ammunition goes hand in hand with the choke tubes. And the only way you can figure out, in your gun, because bore diameters in shotguns vary too, but the only way you can figure out in your gun what a choke and load are doing is go out and pattern it. What we try to do is design a choke that's going to pattern different loads and do the homework, so that when you call us and tell us that you're going to use a number 2, whatever kind of ammunition it is, and you want to know what patterns are going to be at 30 or 40 yards, we can answer the question, or we have the choke available to make your job easier. Just go out and pattern it with the ammo and make sure the gun's shooting where it's supposed to. So you just can't make chokes and not address the ammunition that's coming out, because they don't all shoot the ammunition the same.
Right. So, when it comes to ammunition, you guys really have to keep your finger on that pulse on the market.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's turkey loads, waterfowl loads, or, there's trap loads get changed a lot. And you asked me earlier about, buying shells inexpensively. I think most people would be surprised if they took some different trap loads out and shot them at 35 yards and laid the paper down, look at the density of some of those. I'm not saying all low-end shells are not going to shoot well, but generally there's a reason, if there's a lower price, why the price is lower. That's not always true, but sometimes in ammunition it is, because we see it. But again, patterning will answer that, and sometimes trying a different load if you don't like a pattern, you might see something better in your pattern than what you did with the lower end price point stuff.
Awesome. So, where, does being a owner of Carlson's choke tubes, do you get to hunt much anymore, or what?
Well, that was the other bad thing. I should have got into fishing lures. Then I could have hunted all fall and got the fishing stuff going in the spring. But, anymore, our season runs almost from September clear back around till the middle of May, with turkey season. So, it doesn't give us a lot of time to get out and hunt. But fortunately, with the business, we meet a lot of people that are hunters, and a lot of times we get invited to good spots to go hunt. So I guess that's one of the advantages. But, there's some disadvantages too. But
yeah. Have you been on any good waterfowl hunts this year?
Not this year yet. I mean, I've been out a few times, but haven't gone to any destinations or anything. So generally after the first of the year, we get after geese, and we get a lot of, we're not too far up here from the Platte River, so there's some terrific waterfowl opportunities up there.
Oh, yeah. What are some of the most commonly asked questions or concerns that you get from customers?
Well, a lot of the questions we get are just on patterning. It's mainly educating, and we have videos out now on patterning shotguns. And, customers want us to answer their questions for them of why the load's not patterning tighter, or why the choke's doing this, or why their gun's shooting where it is. Or they need to get out on the patterning board, shoot the choke and the loads together that they want to use. We try to direct them, in what we think when they tell us what the ammo is that we have. But, most of the questions we get are patterning questions. Just tons of patterning questions, because people they don't pattern their shotguns. So, big mistake. I do these interviews once in a while, or I do question and answers with people, and it just amazes me that people, a lot of these guys are avid hunter, long-time hunters, never ever patterned a shotgun. So, there's a lot of shotguns out there that shoot point and aim too. So you may be one of the lucky guys and got one of those, and you never have any troubles switching chokes. You just always had good luck, and your gun shoots where it's supposed to. But sometimes if you're one of those guys that thinks they should be hitting more targets, good chance that something with your load, your choke, or your gun's not right. So that's why it's so important.
Well, do you guys have anything exciting coming up?
Well, we've got a lot of shows coming up this spring. We got SHOT Show kicking off here the middle part of January, and then we're out there, in 10 or 11 other shows meeting with our dealers. And, we're working on some new chokes for turkeys this spring. We're going to have some new TSS chokes out. We've had a longbeard tube out here for a couple of years now that's a really good choke tube. These new TSS loads, where you're shooting 9s and 7s at turkeys, 10 10 years ago, we would have said, no, you couldn't shoot 9s or 7s at turkeys, but boy, this stuff will go through things. It's hard. It's harder than lead, and it's really a good product that's out there for turkey hunting. So anyway, we've got some new chokes for that stuff coming out. So, we're always looking at new products, new loads, and getting ahead of our customers so that we got it when they go looking for it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, where can, I think it's pretty silly. You guys are at carlsonschoketubes.com, right?
Yep, or you can just go to choketube.com.
Choketube, you got that one. All right.
Yeah.
And then you guys have Facebook. You guys have an Instagram?
Yes. Yep. Facebook, Instagram.
Whole 9 yards. But
well, not that I use all that. I'm old school, so that's why I've got some good people around here that help take care of.
That's right. Well, is there any parting words you'd like to leave the listeners with?
No, I mean, I think the most important thing on shooting shotgun shells and choke tubes and shotguns is go out and pattern your shotgun. And anybody that's got a question on it or a problem, we back our product with a lifetime warranty, and there's a reason we do that. So we believe in what we've done and that it works, and we're here and happy to answer your questions.
All right. There's one final thing I usually ask most guests is, okay, you only get to go hunting one more time. Where are you going to go? Who are you going with? What are you hunting? And what's it like?
Well, I tell you, it doesn't get much better than going on a duck hunt or a goose hunt in a pit with 4 or 5 of your good friends and spending the day out there hunting. So I think if I probably had to do a hunt, it would probably be a waterfowl hunt, with 4 or 5 good friends, probably be up on the Platte River. Anyway, that's my idea of a good hunt. But, there's a lot of good hunts out there. Turkey, deer, it don't matter. As long as you're out in the woods having a good time with your family or friends, it don't get no better than that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to explain to us a little bit about choke tubes and patterning and letting us get a little inside look on Carlson's choke tubes, and just appreciate it.
You bet, Ben. It's been appreciate the opportunity, and I enjoyed talking to you.
Absolutely. All right, you have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Fowl Front Waterfowl Podcast. Please come join us on our Facebook group, the Fowl Front Waterfowl Podcast group, where you can connect with a good group of hunters, because we're all in this together. We need to act like it so that hopefully our great grandkids will be hunting ducks over our favorite public lands. We also ask that you go ahead and give us a written review on iTunes and give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. And we really do want to hear back from you so that we can give you the best possible content. And if you get in on that Facebook group, you can get in there and you can ask questions and you can tell us what you want to hear next, or you can tell us what you don't like, and we'll be sure to tailor things to our listeners. So, all right, stay safe out there, and we will see you next week.